There's Craig. What's up, Craig?
All right. I was on. I saw you. It just glitched on me.
No, it's all good. Hey guys, we need to give Craig McDowell a round of applause because currently, not yet. Hold. He's in Newport, California on vacation, and he's doing a meeting with us. So let's give that man a round of applause. Let's give it up.
I'm not missing a thing. It's been raining for 2 days, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks, dude.
No applause.
I see
Necessary.
your sunroof doesn't exactly look sunny. It looks a little wet.
It looks like Jurassic Park. You guys know the scene where the dinosaur comes in and it's raining? All right. Craig, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to go over this. And I think about 5's. This week's Culture Concepts guys are 5's and Kaizen. And there's no one else. I'm going to give you a little intro, Craig. There's no one else that I think about when I think about 5's. I think of Craig McDowell. Because I remember there was this one moment where Scott Oxman and I were at the gas station and we just introduced 5's and Craig was on a sick one. He was talking about 5's all the time. It was his baby. I think it was he saw the value in it and he just kept on driving it. And I remember Oxman and I were just sitting there talking at the gas pumps. I'm catching up. And Craig pulls up in his car and he's like, "What's 5's stand for?" I remember I was thinking to myself like, sorry, no. And like, I just remember it was like this thing that you were just so focused on. And so when we think about teaching this stuff, we want people who are passionate about what they teach. And Craig, I would love to pass it off to you, but 5's, hearing it from you. What do you got to teach us?
Yeah, I remember, gosh, it's probably been almost 10 years since we implemented the 5's system and first Clean Freak and then Watershed. And I was on a tyrant, but man, I remember when I came across it, I read this book called Andy and Me. And it was all about 5's and what H is. Dan, you want to mute everyone?
I'm doing it right now.
Cool.
Oh, I think I just muted you. Hold on. Is there a mute all button? Mute all. All right. Now I just muted everybody. Now, Craig, unmute yourself and you can keep going, brother. Sorry about that. NH.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Cool. I read this book called Andy and Me. You can get it. It's a hard, difficult read, but it introduced this concept. H will talk about part of it, which is Kaizen. And this other part of it was about 5's. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But my first question for you is, what kind of household did you grow up in? Was it one of order or disorder? You can kind of ask yourself that question. When I grew up with a mom who was clean, tidy. Everything was in order. My mom's nickname was Get It Done Marine because she didn't procrastinate on anything. If it had to be done, she got it done. She didn't wait around. Everything was done, and it was done to perfection. I remember growing up, she had this cleaning lady come over every Wednesday morning. She'd walk through the front door. They would sit down and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee for probably 30 minutes. And then for the next 5 hours, they would be cleaning the house. My mom got a cleaning lady, but my mom would clean along with her all day long. And so Wednesday, we come home from school and we have this clean, spick and span home. And then by Wednesday evening, my mom is completely frustrated because 3 boys and all their friends have completely trashed the house. And so this was kind of the schedule we were on every week. My mom loved to do it. She loved to serve. She loved to clean, but it would just get trashed. And there was no, one thing we'll talk about, nothing standardized. So just as quick as it was clean, it would go back to being messy again. And then my dad, he was a very meticulous guy. If you go into his office today, you'll find everything is in order. He's got a stack of papers this high. Probably hasn't looked at the ones on the bottom in 6 months, but everything has an order. His pen is in the right place. The problem with that, if you go in his office and he's working with someone, it would completely be disorganized because someone would have a different routine. So that's kind of the household that I grew up in versus my wife, who grew up in a very disorderly home. with lots of clutter, lots of disorganization. God bless my mother-in-law, but she lives alone in a 2,500 square foot home, and she's not even able to park in her garage because she's got so many piles in her garage that she just can't get around to getting organized. So those are kind of the backgrounds we grew up in. So I know all of you have a different background, and some grew up in the same type of household that I grew up in, and some grew up in the same household as my wife grew in. But I think we can all, after we get through 5S and kind of understanding a little bit deeper, I think we can all rally around that and get around it. I think it's just a wonderful system. So what is 5S? It is a 5-step methodology for creating a more organized and productive workspace. Thanks, Dan, for pulling that up.
My pleasure.
So from what purpose? 5S helps eliminate waste and improve workplace flow. And so these principles were pioneered decades ago by Toyota Motor Company to improve their efficiency in their manufacturing. And so the system that is called is the TPS system, and it's what you can Google it, and it's all over the internet, and you can read more about it. But it stands for the Toyota production system. And so since Toyota started this decades ago, major companies have kind of implemented it into their processes. Boeing, Nike, Ford Motor Company, Harley Davidson, and one of the most major companies you're familiar with is Watershed Car Wash has implemented it. And so interesting, if I gave everyone in on the Zoom call $100,000 to go out and buy a car, you probably wouldn't be going out to buy a Toyota. And guess what? Toyota is perfectly fine with that. They never set out to be the best, most luxurious car manufacturer. But the one thing they did set out to do is to get better and better each year. And 5S, the 5S principle helped in that direction. Their goal as a company was to get better and better each year. Does that sound like Kaizen? H is going to be touching on that. And so the wonderful thing about 5S system is it saves time and reduces frustration. We've all had that frustration when you're in the office or anywhere and you're looking for something and you say to yourself, I know I left it right there. Well, you probably did leave it right there, but there's someone right behind you that moved it. So we've all had those frustrating situations at home where you've placed something somewhere and you just can't seem to find it. And so that's one of the beautiful things about 5S is it eliminates that frustration in the workplace. So the first principle, Dan, if you could put that up.
Yes, sir.
The first principle. Yeah.
One thing I was just thinking about,
Dan?
Craig, is like just right before you were about to say that, I think it's also really powerful of like having that order and finding that was like, that's one of my favorite things about 5S, like in the office of like, you need to find an incident report because it really matters at this moment. You know exactly where it is, and imagine that power and having that stuff where it needs to be. And that just kind of jumped in my mind when I was thinking about that.
Yeah, and I think that was that Caitlin, because we had 5S and that wasn't even part of our 5S system in the beginning. I think Caitlin introduced that and talk about Kaizening the system. Like these systems they're live, they can change. So the goal is to take this system and, implement. I know they've been implemented in the office, but can it improve even more? Can you bring it into the equipment room or the storage room in Oklahoma City or your restrooms? I think you can just take this as far as you want. So the goal for you, the managers, is to just take a little deeper dive in this and see how you can improve it and Kaizen it at your locations.
Isn't that funny how they go hand in hand, Craig? Kaizen and 5S, they seem to you keep on almost wanting to say it every time. Maybe that's why we married them together, but you keep on wanting to say Kaizen that. It's amazing how they
Oh,
put
yeah.
funny. Sorry.
Well, the reason I refer to them is because that in the Toyota production system, they are married together. They're part and parcel of the same teaching, so they do go together. So sort is the first S in 5S. What does sort mean? Keeping only what's necessary and throw away everything else. My motto is when in doubt, throw it out. So if you could go to that picture, Dan.
Yes, sir. The first one.
Yeah, the first one.
This is confusing.
So
it gives a little description here.
So I remember we ran into this location in Oklahoma. This is one of the victory washes that we bought. And as you guys know, the equipment rooms are notorious for grabbing clutter and extra parts and junk. And it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. So the first order of business is to sort. And it's getting rid of everything that is not necessary. Throw it in the trash and get rid of it. And so that's one of the first things we did when we went to these locations in Oklahoma is we threw out the hussies.
We found some mannequins. Crazy.
Yeah. And then can you imagine working at this location and making sense of that web of whatever? Can you imagine the frustrations you would have at work? I
Craig,
can't imagine.
You called this perfectly. You called this the spaghetti wall. And I was like, that is literally the perfect name for this. Like, what is what? Where does it go? Who knows?
Oh, it would be horrible. So, I think one thing you could do consistently is go through your equipment rooms. And if you haven't used the piece for 6 months, just get rid of it. I know we always like to say in our mind, I'll probably need it someday. You may or you may not, but all it does is create clutter. So assuming that it's not a spare part that's critical to have on hand, just get rid of it. Talk to your manager or talk to your DM and see if it's a part you can get rid of. But you guys know what you can keep, what you need and what you don't. It's common sense. So, I do that about 3 times a year in my closet. I go through my closet, and if I haven't worn something in the last 4 or 5 months, I just donate it. And it just gives me peace of mind. Everything should have its place. Yeah.
Craig, real quick, it's interesting. I was just thinking, my wife is on I call it a decluttering tear in our home. We just accumulate so much stuff over the years. And there's like a process that you work through very similar to 5S. And she has something called the time will tell box now. So if I grab something and she's like, what's your first thought? Do we need it or no? We have a hard time letting go because of your point. Like, what if I need this? And so she says, great, throw it in this box. It's the time will tell box. And then you go back to it in a month. Have you used it? Did you need it? And 9 times out of 10, probably 9.5 times out of 10, the answer is nope, don't need it, get rid of it. So maybe that's something that we should just be considering as we move down the road of 5S. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one step closer to getting the heck out of here. I like that. And it's easier for someone who does have trouble with separating. I like that. I really like that. So sort is your first order of business. It's everything has its own place. Second S is shine.
Oh, that's the third.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Set in order. And setting an order is all about orderliness. It's arranging, it's labeling, only the necessary things, so that anyone can return them to, the correct space. And it's, this picture displays that. That's a site that, I don't know, everyone has a shelf that maybe look like that. I don't know how far you guys have gone with 5S, but this was a site that we had in Tucson, and this guy took it in the equipment room. I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks so much better.
Oh
but
yeah.
The problem with this, yeah, the picture on the left, when you're going to find something, you can't find it. You might have, lube, but you just can't find it. So if you zoom in on that picture, Dan, on the right. Yeah.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful. Everything labeled, easy to find. You can find what you need within 5 seconds of looking at that Gorilla shelf.
Yeah.
And so setting an order is all about creating order with the mess that you have. And it's sorting, it's getting rid, and then you set everything in place where you want it. Everything should have its place. The third is shine. And so that's workplace cleanliness. Sweep it, mop it, wipe it. A clean environment just feels better, as you guys know. And so this is, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, everyone, you're constantly wiping down, you're constantly mopping. It's, this thing isn't one and done, set it and forget it. It takes constant going back to and creating these steps, going through each step. It's circular, as you'll see. It's not linear, so this cycle never ends. You go through sort and up through sustain over and over and over again. And so one of the probably most important steps in 5S is standardize. And this is where you lock it in. This is where you lock in the first 3 S's. And as you'll see, you guys all know these toolboxes that we have. This is one of the most enjoyable things when we tour investors on the site, is to show them our 5S toolboxes. And it just wows them every time. And if you go back to that picture,
Craig, why do you think that is so impressive to them? I mean, like to me, it just seems like it's what we've been doing for the last 10 years, but why do you think it's impressive to investors and to, and by the way, investors are extremely important to impress. That's how we get the money to build these things. So why is this important? Why do you think that's important to them?
I think because your expectation is it's going to look like the box on the left.
Yeah.
And if you can, it says that you take care of the details, that you have your eye on the business. If you have your eye on something as stupid as a toolbox, you must have your eye on everything else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And so if you look at that toolbox cabinet on the left, that is the toolbox of the bike department of the largest sporting goods store in the United States. Anyone heard of Dick's Sporting Goods?
Oh yeah.
So that's Dick's on the left there. That's where they put bikes together. Can you imagine how much longer it's going to take to put a bike together versus if you had to work from a toolbox on the right? Yeah. So that is standardized. And this is the standardization is really what absolutely transformed our business. When we began to not only standardize in the 5S systems, but all of our policies, our procedures, our systems, everything has been standardized. What do I mean by that? If we're talking 5S, it's had a picture taken, it's been labeled, or if it's the 10-day training, it's been put down on paper. There's processes. You guys all work from checklists, morning, evening, closing checklists, end of the month checklists. All this stuff has been created and standardized, and it didn't happen overnight. This stuff took years, and you're just the beneficiary of all this painstakingly documentation that's been happening for years. And as you know, it makes your job easier. You don't have to think. One of the biggest frustrations we had early on, when we were managing 2 locations, Mark and I were on site. Mark would show up one day, tell the guy how to load, and then I would show up the next day and say, no, you don't do it like that. You do it like this. And it just created employee frustrations because Mark had his standard, I had mine, and they were just a little bit different. But when you standardize and you document and you take pictures, that is now the standard. Now we can all manage off the same way. And that's why you go from site to site and everyone's speaking the same language, using the same paperwork, the same checklists. And that is how we can scale and run a seemingly tight operations with 27 sites now to have 37 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
This is how the major corporations do it, is they've standardized their businesses. It's what's brought a lot of freedom to us.
And
So
I
that
guess
is standardized.
that's why
Yeah.
Toyotas are so, reliable, right? There's system, there's order. You get the same
Yeah.
Toyota. It's not inconsistent, but like I love that. How it's really powerful, and I just want to echo it real quick. Is like that's why we hope. That's the hope, is that we go to every watershed, and you're going to see the similarities. You're going to see the footprint and being similar, right? That's the goal. But then we lead into sustain, which is you're about to hit it. That's the difficult part, right?
That's the difficult part. That's the part that takes the management. This is not one and done, set it, forget it. Sustain is not only an event, you have to do it in the beginning, but more importantly, it's a process. And this is what you have to maintain.
Yeah.
It's sustain. You go back. And so I would encourage you, maybe, these cultural concepts come up every 6 or 7 weeks.
8
So
weeks.
when every what?
Every 8 weeks they rotate. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Yep. So every 8 weeks, it should be an indicator when you see 5S. Go deep. You got to go back. Is there things that need to be sorted out? Do they need to be cleaned again? It's a constant system that needs to be managed.
Yeah.
Your workspaces. We are in the car wash business. It doesn't take 8 weeks for things to get dirty. It takes 1 or 2 days. So it's something you should be revisiting, not every 8 weeks, but every at least week, probably, to maintain.
You're like, can we up that? Kaizen is always 5S is always part of every week. So
and then if you go that last picture, Dan.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So I always had the frustration. Toiletry drawer, it would just be a catch-all, and I could never find anything. So I said, I love this 5S system. I'm going to get some Kaizen foam, and I'm going to lock it in at my house. And it was wonderful.
Dude,
and then I moved, and I haven't done it again. So
you got to bring it back. But Craig, it's so funny, like being a part of this culture, and we're teaching culture concepts, and you're teaching on why 5S is important. And then I'll go home to my toolbox, and I'm like legitimately convicted of like, man, I am not living this out. Like, I don't know if anybody else can relate, but we're teaching it at work, and we're to the standard. And then I go home to my toolbox, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good.
know.
I hope I never have an employee look at my toolbox. I'd be just embarrassed. So
yeah. So thanks for your time. That's 5S. I know you guys do a great job. These sites, I just love going into the offices when I'm visiting a site, and you really do a great job. Just see if you can maybe carry it behind the office a little bit more.
Hey, Craig, thank you so much for teaching. One thing I want to echo, and maybe you can maybe echo it for me as well, but one thing that I always encourage every leader on this call to do is ask your team to join you in it. Like, this isn't just like, one person's job is to go and do this. It's actually, that'd be extremely difficult. And you might feel that adversity. Like you might ask yourself the question, why does my team never put this back in its place? Right. Or they might ask like those questions that are kind of incorrect in a way, but ask your team to join you in it. Be like, one thing I've done when I was in the field is I would ask people, hey, like, join me in this. Find me something that's out of place, and let's get the label maker out and let's label it up. Let be an extra pair of eyes for me. Go around, look at the equipment room, see if I'm out, see if something's out of line. But when you invite them into it, it's so much more fruitful than you just being the cop that has to find everything that's out of order. You know what I mean?
Great point. This is one person cannot get this done. This is absolutely a team effort. So I echo your echo, Dan.
Thank you for echoing the echo of the echo. So I appreciate it. Guys, Craig, thank you so much for doing that. Once again, thank you for always being a champion of it. And all of us on this call will take that up, and we will do our best to continue to Kaizen. Wait a minute. That's my cue for H. But Craig, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
H, you're
Thanks,
up,
Craig.
brother.
Thank you, Danny boy. Danny, what's our time frame?
You can go for the hour. So you got 27 minutes.
27 minutes. Okay. I won't. Okay. Perfect.
Do whatever.
Nice. So Dan asked me to talk about Kaizen. So I'm here to talk about Kaizen to you guys. And for me, the first thing that came to mind as I was processing just all of our cultural concepts, our visions, our values. I think what I love most about all of those is they apply not only at work, but more so in our personal lives. So it's funny when David, you're like, hey, can you look at Kaizen, or can you look at different cultural concepts? I almost have to stop and think, oh yeah, why did we put that in play for work? Because I'm so used to how it impacts me on my personal life, So that's what I love about our vision, our values, our cultural concept, guys. If you take these and utilize them, you will find equally or more impact in your day-to-day personal lives, in your relationships, as mothers, as fathers, as husbands, as wives, as children. You will find equally or more impact if you can take these concepts and put them into your everyday life. So Kaizen. All right. So Kaizen, we define Kaizen as the art of continuous improvement. We'll circle back on that definition, but I wanted to start off with Craig mentioned that Toyota kind of gets credited or coined for that term. Craig said, and it's true, Toyota has a value of we want to improve year over year over year. I was watching this fun video. You can look them up on YouTube. It's just interesting how much they value this term Kaizen, how much they want to continuously improve. Not only do they want to improve year over year, what Toyota has determined was, hey, we can produce X amount of cars a year, and time on these production lines is money. Then we want to not only worry about year over year, but let's break it down to month. How can we get better month over month? How can we get better day over day? And they break it down to not minutes, but seconds. If there's something that they can improve on that will cut back on 5.8 seconds, they will try to implement that because they understand that it's going to make a better workplace for the employees. It's going to produce more vehicles. And at the end of the day, it's going to help make Toyota more profitable. So they value this so much that they actually challenge their employees. They say they encourage their employees to come up with 2 Kaizens a month. So imagine if you have a company with 300 employees, as we do, and every employee's challenged to twice a month thinking of a way to improve themselves and or the business. Can you imagine what our company would look like in a year from now? Like it would be amazing.
Amazing.
The video shows this is how down to like seconds they are. So a guy walks through a Toyota production line, and they said, walk through these different stations, and I want you to come up with a Kaizen for our company. So the guy's walking through, and he's tested out different stations, and there's some of the obvious ones, right? Where, hey, they used to lift the windshields up. 2 people would lift the windshield, and they'd go over and they place the windshield, in its spot, and they would connect it. Well, now they have robots, right? Those are big, obvious things. So now they have robots that just place it down. They don't have to worry about it. But he's saying, let's go granular, figure out what else we can do to Kaizen our production line. So this person, one of the stations was there's a bucket full of screws, and they had to take 2 screws out of the bucket, puts it on a drill, and drills 2 screws, very simple, 2 screws into your steering wheel. And he said, the challenge I had with that, if I'm being honest, is to reach my hand into a bucket and grab exactly 2 screws, especially if I have a glove on, and then try to put it on a drill without it falling off. He's like, there's got to be a better way. And so what do? They go create this station that you guys remember, like the old school, like coin dispensers that you'd have on your, on your hip, and it would just pull out 2 quarters if you clicked it. Literally, that's what they built. For 2 screws to pop out, they pull a lever, 2 screws drop down. Then the screwdriver, instead of having the old drill, they had a drill that would come from the ceiling. And so you push it, 2 screws pop out, magnetic, sticks on here, goes straight down. And they figured whatever the timing was that it would save. And they said, awesome, if we take this and it saves X number of seconds, multiply that out by the number of vehicles and the time. And, ultimately they said, hey, that is a Kaizen. So it's like, man, could you imagine if they're thinking on stuff like that? I think it shows actually in Toyota's product. Some of you guys probably think we're getting paid from Toyota right now, but I promise you we're not getting paid from Toyota. So that is how Kaizen came to be. Now, so I look at our definition of Kaizen, and it's the art of continuous improvement. So as I was looking at that, I'm like, what does the art of something actually mean? When we say the art of something, what does that mean? So I looked it up, and it said the art of something is a skill of doing a specific thing, typically one acquired through practice. So the art of continuous improvement is a skill of doing something typically acquired through practice. Guys, I think the optimal word there is practice, right? To practice is an action. If we want to see continuous improvement, then by definition, we must act on something. I think about what Mark shared with us last week. Mark said, the will controls the mind controls your emotions, and then your emotions control your what? Your actions, right? You guys remember that?
Yes, sir.
So if we want continuous improvement in our lives, we must be thinkers. You guys get that? If we want a continuous improvement in our lives, first and foremost, we must be thinkers. We must think on the things that might be bothering us and why they're bothering us. We got to think on the things that we have that are good in our lives and why we have it. We have to think on who we want to be and what it's going to take for me to become that person. We must think on all of these things, and then we must act. So the thinking has to translate into action in order us to improve in our lives. So we have to just think, what are we thinking on? What are we feeding our minds on? Mark mentioned that last week. What are we thinking on? What are we feeding our minds on? And what are we acting on? So I'm going to break this down real quick into a personal life, and then how maybe this looks at work. All right, so personal life. How do we Kaizen in our personal lives? If you guys are prone to write these three things down. Number one, what should I start doing today to improve my personal life? What should I start doing? Number two, what should I stop doing today? And number three, what should I continue doing? So what should I start doing? What should I stop doing? And what should I continue doing? We need to start thinking about these things. Start thinking about what should I start doing, and then we need to act on it, right? So in our personal lives, what should I start doing today to improve? Do I need to start telling my husband and my wife, my spouse, that I love them more? If I need to do that, then start doing it. Have I been talking or thinking about, gosh, my finances are just out of whack. I need to start creating a budget. If that's what you're thinking on, then start doing it. Do I need to serve my spouse better? Do I need to spend more time with them? If that's what you're thinking on and you want improvement in your personal life, then start doing it. Do I need to start looking spiritually and say, hey, I need to open up the truth and read on it more? If that's what you're thinking on, you just have to start doing it. What should I stop doing? Are there things in my life that I'm doing that are not valuable? Have you been thinking, gosh, I know I curse a lot and it's just, I want to stop. Like, what should I then stop doing it? If you want to Kaizen and improve in your life, what are the things we need to stop doing? Have you been saying, hey, I'm addicted to this stinking vape pen and I know it's not good for me and I want to stop because it would improve my life? What are those things in your personal lives that we need to stop doing? And then third, what are the things I should continue to do in my personal life? Maybe you've started a tradition, a family game night tradition for 2 weeks now, and you're like, gosh, that's just been, I've seen fruit for that in that. Maybe I need to continue doing that. I would encourage you continue doing it. In your personal lives, if you want something different than you currently have, then I would encourage you guys to find someone who has something different that you look up to. Maybe their family life structure looks different. Maybe there's something you see in them or the way they run their lives, and put yourself around them. Talk to them. Ask them, what are you guys doing differently? Think on it and then act on it. Who are you guys hanging around in your personal lives? Mark mentioned it yesterday. If you want a continuous improvement in your personal lives, then you have to put yourself around a good sphere of influence. I love that saying. There's a saying that says, show me the 5 people you hang around and I will show you your future. I think Mark may have even touched on that, right? If you're hanging around, if you want to become, a great parent, then hang around great people who are great parents. If you want to become a business person, then hang around people who do business and do business well, right? Put yourself around those people. But if you look to your left and you look to your right and you're looking for continuous improvement and the people next to you are stagnant and or moving backwards, then I would say consider your sphere of influence. Maybe it's time to think on that and act on it. And guys, also remember, when it comes to Kaizening or continuous improvement in your personal lives, it will not happen overnight. Kaizening doesn't happen necessarily overnight. I think of it like, you're not going to have a 180-degree swing. If you could have small incremental change through your thoughts and your actions, and you move that needle 1 degree each day, you will find yourself going down a different path than you are on currently. So it will not happen overnight. Okay. So that's kind of personal lives. Just remember, we got to be thinkers and we got to act.
Hey, H,
Work.
is there
Yes.
any chance that you could like run through that like in 30 seconds again? That was so good. You talked about I have like the think on it, act on it, the start, stop, and continue. And then what was that? Show me 5 people that you're around. I love that line. What was that?
Yeah. So show me the 5 people you hang around with most, and I will show you your future.
That's powerful. That's really good.
And if I think about the progression of my life when I was younger, and I look at the 5 people I hung around with in high school, 100%, I became them. You almost conform to them. Like Mark was saying, you start dressing like them, you start talking like them, you start to conform to the world around you. And I think that can be the reality. And so who do I need to put myself around? What changes do I need to make in order to have continuous improvement in my life? What was your other question, Dan?
No, you nailed it. Thank you. I was just wanting to, my pen was running. And so I was just seeing if anybody else related to me. And so does anybody have any questions for H before he goes on to the business or the professional life? Because that was really good on the personal stuff.
What was the third question? So I got, what should I start doing today to improve? What should I stop doing? Then what's the next question? The third one?
Yeah. What should I continue doing? What's working well in my life? Right. So for me, I'll give you an example on that, Andy. Actually, this came from Dan. I was hanging out with Dan and Alyssa, and they were like, "Yeah, we do Friday night movie nights with the kids." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of a cool concept. Like, just cutting out certain time for your family." And so we did it one Friday night, and then somehow it just happened the next Friday, and the kids were like, "Are we doing movie night, popcorn?" And all of a sudden I'm like, man, I got myself into it. This is something good. My kids like it. It puts all the phones down. It forces us to be together in a very specific time frame. Like, man, this is something. I started thinking, I'm like, this is something that's worth continuing to do. It brings value to my home. My kids enjoy it. So yeah, number 3 is what are the things in my life that I should continue doing?
Like that. Thank you.
Anybody? My pleasure. Anybody else? Any other questions so far on the personal stuff? Good. Okay.
think we're
You guys
good.
are thinking on it, aren't you? Okay, good.
No, they're thinking of their question for after. That's what they're all doing right now, right, guys? Just kidding.
So for work, what does this look like? If I want to have continuous improvement in our work environment, if you guys are prone to write down these three things. What should I start doing? What should I stop doing? And what should I continue doing? I was thinking about this. I would encourage you, anybody who's a leader and that does meetings on a regular basis, try this for the next month when you're doing your weekly meetings. If you want to see your environment or your location get better, ask your team members, guys, let's start our meeting. Everyone, give me something. What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? And what should we continue doing? And you know what that's going to do? That's going to give people the authority, if you will, to speak about their experiences. And they may have something on their mind that they've been saying, hey, gosh, why do we do something like this? Why do we do it this way? And help them we can start answering the whys. And if we're not improving, guys, we're stagnant and therefore probably going backwards, right? I don't know if you guys know about the kind of the Kodak story, but it's like infamous for its failures. I'll give you a quick rundown, but Kodak was a film company. So you would take old school pictures and you'd bring it and they would print out pictures for you. And I read the other day that they actually were one of the first people in 1975. The Kodak company was one of the first groups to invent a digital camera. So they knew digital photos were coming. But they said in their mind, they're like, well, we don't want this to be a reality because then people will stop coming and printing. So instead of them looking at this as an opportunity to change and get better, they swept it under the rug, said, no, let's just hide it and hope that it never comes back. And they never adapted. Kodak was one of the biggest companies at the time, and they never adapted. They held on to the way that they had done business for the last however many years, and they refused to Kaizen. And guess what happened? The digital world came and blew them right out of the water. And so because they grasped who they were and said, we're not changing, we are a film company and we're not going to Kaizen anything, they filed for bankruptcy and they are completely gone. Now imagine that they were the ones that helped create digital cameras. They knew it was coming, but they didn't want to change who they were, and they took themselves and impacted a lot of lives by closing down. So for work, guys, which in those meetings, what should we start doing? What should we stop doing? What should we continue doing? If any of you feel like you are stuck, if you feel like work is getting mundane for you, I'm gonna suggest that it's because you're not thinking on the business and how to improve it. You're not thinking on the business. You're actually working in the business, right? Business is so fun. What we're doing is so fun. We have owners that say, please give us feedback. What do you see? What do you like? How do we do it differently? I can promise you, we put stuff together 12 years ago that you guys are still carrying out, that I can almost guarantee you, if we really broke it down, it worked 12 years ago, but it may not work properly today, right? So as a company, we have to be thinking, how do we Kaizen? How do we get better? How do we improve the way we're already doing things? So we give you guys the green light to share those with us. Be thinking on the business. Be thinking about, why are we doing things the way we're doing, and then let's act on it. Look for opportunities to improve at work. Look for opportunities to improve your position. If you're saying, hey, why can't I move up? What's going on? I would suggest we're not asking the right questions. If you feel like you're in a dead end, I'm going to suggest that it's only because you've allowed yourself to walk down a dead end road. We can improve in work, not only in our structure and our processes, and get better and get more effective, but you guys can be thinking on the business and help us grow and be part of that growth. So be thinking on the business, be thinking on positions. How do we improve? What are you feeding your minds with? Are you guys reading about business? Are you guys reading books? Do you log into Dan's teachings all the time. Dan loves teaching. We have so many people that love teaching. Are you soaking in what Dan is feeding us and then saying, great, how do we take that information and improve on it? So guys, I would encourage you, be thinkers in Watershed, be thinkers, and then be doers. So look for opportunities, guys, in your lives to improve for yourself. Look for these opportunities to improve for others. And then I think you'll have a full understanding of what Kaizen really is about. So be thinkers, be doers, and Kaizen your personal lives and your work life. So
I love
that's it.
Amazing. Hey, one thing I really want to process with you, and you can be vocal with me. Thinkers and doers is really important because we have some people that think a lot but don't do, and then you have some guys that are just doers and they don't think about what they're doing. Like, is this a broken system or is this a good system? Like, it's really the balance, or really is how this company works so well, is that there's some people that are really heavy on thinking and doers, and then there's doers, right? And so how have you seen that balance? Because you said it multiple times: think on it, then act on it, then do it, or think on it, then do it. So why is that so present for you in this thinking?
Can you rephrase that question?
Yeah, why is that
Sorry.
so important to be thinkers and doers?
Yeah, because I think you need it. You need both of it, right? So there's scenarios where I think and that goes back to my point, that if you feel like you're stagnant in whatever you're doing, it's probably because you're either a doer and you're not asking the why question, which is a huge question, right? You're just doing. They told me to do it this way. I'm great at listening. And you're doing, but you're not thinking, hey, why are we doing it this way, right? Or there are times we have thinkers but don't put stuff into action, and that's why someone who's really enjoying what they're doing and is finding like a passion there, they're taking both of those and putting it together, right? So yeah, I just think it's important to have both, for sure.
That's awesome.
So
over the years, what's something that you've Kaizened in your career, something that's kind of popped up in your mind, or something you've been focusing on to Kaizen?
It's funny, when Mark talked last week about RAS, you're for me recently, it's been we have so many ways through technology now to get emails come in. So your email fills up, you get text messages, they fill up, you get Slack posts, you get phone calls, you get stuff left on your desk. And so for me personally, I'm in that thinking process right now. Is, all right, how do I manage that? How do I break that down? And what is my action step going to be? So I recognize it as something I just want to get a little more control over, how to manage what should be my next to do. So just for me, it's time management, really, if I boiled it down. So, but like I said, the personal life, I think there's probably equally, or if not more, impact through Kaizen in my personal life than anything. So
yeah, that's awesome. Hey, what's something that we could take away from these calls? Like, is there a question that we could ask our teams? And if you don't have one, I can try to help. But is there something that you would encourage us with Kaizen? Maybe a focus. I love to think on it and do it. Is there anything else that you've seen that could be encouraging to, like, maybe a question we could ask? I don't know, something to put into action.
Well, I think it goes back to, those meetings, there's something about getting the group involved. You got all your team is boots on the ground, right? They're seeing stuff. So the minute you get them involved, I promise you, a CSR S1, they come in, they probably think our company is like every other, where I don't have a voice. I'm just here to work, right? The minute you get them involved and say, hey, I care about what you think. Hey, what do you think we should start doing differently? What do you think we should continue doing? Hey, is there something you think we should stop doing? You ask those 3 questions in your meeting and empower them to give us feedback.
So good.
Yeah, I think you see it. And if each site picks one thing from the group and that's something that's maybe not working right or something that we can improve on. One site like that makes a difference for everybody.
I love that. Okay. That's a great takeaway. The start, stop, and continue. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for H or Craig? I believe is still on the call. Does anyone have any questions for these gentlemen before we let them go? All right. Well, if you do have any questions, obviously text me or email me. I can forward on to any of these guys. I think Craig did leave. H, thank you so much for your time, brother. We appreciate you. And Kaizen is something that's so near and dear to my heart. I think that's, yes, the round of applause. Good job, Lawton. It's something that's so near and dear to my heart because this is totally a personal thing. It's been something that I've just been trying to get better at, and I fail still, but I'm just trying to focus on just getting 1% better. Personally, as a dad or as a father, as a husband, it's something that I hold so. Almost gives me hope that I don't have to be perfect today. I'm just going to try to get better. And the same thing goes for work, is that we are not perfect. I'll be the first one to admit to you that I'm not perfect. And then I'm just thinking to myself, wait, how can I just get a little bit better with these meetings, or my team for Salesforce, or I want to be just that little bit better every day. And that's once again, it kind of gives you life a little bit. It's like a little bit of hope of where I'm not stuck. Yeah.
And so, Dan, if I can just finish up with, just saying thank you to everyone who's on this call. You guys are taking your time out to hop in here and listen to what we have to say, and just know that each and every one of you are valued and cared for and loved. Know that if you guys ever need to talk about anything, or you have questions about the whys behind things, feel free to call us at any time. Our cell phones are on the important phone call list. And guys, we appreciate you guys so much out there grinding out every single day, trying to, carry our values out and our visions out. And so we're just grateful for each and every one of you.
So good. We love you guys. Hey, and what a perfect way of even illustrating giving like an illustration of what Kaizen looks like is this call right here. Every single one of you on this call have a little bit of a desire to get a little bit better, because this is not something that's like, quote unquote, forced to be here. Like, it's like, this is a moment, an opportunity for us to get better. And so all of you on this call, thank you for being here. And that's what it looks like to Kaizen and get one person just a little bit better every day. So good job, everybody. And like I said before, we're going to be doing this for the next 6 weeks. I mean, I can't believe 2 weeks are down. We got 6 weeks left. Next week is going to be Mark McDowell. And actually, my man, John Bond, is going to be on next week's call too. We're going to be going over body language and elevated language. John, get prepared. We've already talked about it. I see you. Yeah, and I think John's like the perfect demonstration of body language. I want to look more like John. I wish I could look like John. Now he's blushing. I can tell. Guys, we are going to be jumping into that next week. Mark and John are going to be jumping into it, and we're excited for it. Mondo, I saw your hand raised. Is that a hand raise? Just wave and saying I want to be like John Bond too.
No, John Bond's amazing, but I want to ask H a question real quick.
Yeah.
H, are you better than you were last week? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good. That's
What
good.
about you, Mondo? Are you better or what?
100%, brother.
Oh, so you're not doing 1% better every day. You're doing like 20% better every day.
No.
Or was that a Tylerism? Tyler is the king of 100%.
No, might have rubbed off a little bit.
Maybe.
Tyler, how's your day doing? How are you doing today? 100%? 100%? That's your slogan.
I love it.
Guys, thank you you were about to say 100%, weren't you?
Yeah, I kind of was.
Guys, thank you so much for the call. Remember, next week, 9 a.m., and we'll send it out, and we'll have a fun time next week as well. Peace.